Outlaw Sports is brought to you by Molson Canadian, made from Canada, and Rocky Mountain Barbecue, Alberta barbecue cuisine at its best. Well, look what the wind blew in. Eric Francis joins us.
Summer's over. I had nothing else to do.
Nothing else to do. Well, Pollock, in fact, what pisses him off last week, and we'll run it this week, was you just showing up when you want.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I'm just giving you the heads up.
Well, Pollock pisses me off, just period. He just pisses me off, so we're even.
Okay, we can get into that a little later. I want to ask you something. Jay Feaster, what do you think of the job this guy has done? Because you were one of those guys that didn't think he had much room to, not much wiggle room at all, and now he's looking pretty darn good as far as the cap goes and even how this team may look.
He's given this team a lot more flexibility than I ever thought possible.
Yeah.
He got two guys with no trade clauses to waive that no trade clause and move on. You know, we could argue all day long whether it was prudent to trade away Langkow or Regeer, but at the end of the day, I don't have a problem with it because, you know, the culture, that core group that was always talked about never got it done, and in the last 2 years they haven't even gotten into the playoffs. Langkow is a huge question mark moving forward because of his injury status and his age, the fact that he hasn't played really basically for a full year. Regeer was getting older. I actually don't have a bad thing to say about Robert Regeer. For the price tag and for what he did, he was very good with the Calgary Flames. And, but, you know, I like what they got in return for him. Now they have $3.6 million in cap room. I fully expect Nicholas Hagman to be waived during camp this year, which is another $3 million. That gives them almost $7 million to do whatever they want. Now, is there anything out there that they can use that money for?
Yep.
Well, they keep talking about the waiver wire. They keep talking about possible trades. There's other teams that are looking to dump some salary as the season gets closer. They're still looking for a #1 center. But the bottom line is I like what he did with those two minor moves. They've opened up flexibility on the ice with Stempniak being able to play on either wing. And they've also opened up things off the ice.
You know what? He'd be a hell of a divorce lawyer to have on your side. Think about, they got other people to take all the crap and all the big thing, and here you are left looking pretty good.
Looking really good. I mean, yeah, they got rid of Kodalik this year. That was a big...
Man.
You know, my first criticism of that was, you know, well, why don't the owners swallow that? You know, they were the ones who had the general manager in place who went and did that deal. They should do their part and help this team out of a jam by swallowing it. But you know what? Good on Jay Feaster. He did it himself. And now that the owners are probably more than willing to swallow the salary of Nicholas Hagman. But that'll be a fascinating debate this year.
Okay, I wanted to ask you about Hagman and Stajan, because if you follow the company line, they are going on saying right now that these two are so committed to life in the NHL. They've had such a bad year and a bad experience in Calgary. They want to prove everybody wrong, and they've committed themselves to working out, to being in unbelievable shape. Rich has gone overseas to make sure they're working on the program.
Yeah.
Now, is that used car sales, or is it just desperation in hopes that somebody may think, hey, they are good, let's take them off their hands?
Well, what else are they going to say, right? I mean, that's the company line, like you said. And I don't, we'll find out in a couple weeks when camp hits if those guys are as good as shit. But to me, it's not about fitness with either one of those guys, and that's certainly a part of it, but it's about confidence. Neither one of them has any confidence whatsoever, and it looks like from afar that their careers are basically both over. Now, Stajan will stick around because he's got another 3 years at the most ridiculous amount of money. But, you know, it's confidence that these guys need to find. And there's going to be some intense battles in camp. Stajan is going to be in a dogfight to get that fourth center job, you know, or maybe the third center job. And Hagman is fighting for his life. He was going to be fighting for his life anyway. For his entire career is on the line this camp.
Yep.
Not just because this team, you know, he had a bad year, but now you add Lee Stempniak, who's touted as a top 6 guy. For those who don't understand, if Hagman's not in the top 6, he's done.
Yep.
Because he's not a checker. He's never thrown a check in his entire life. And he can't play on the fourth line. So he either makes the top 6, and I don't see any way how that's possible.
What are you going to do with all these centers? I mean, who do you go with #1? Is it Backlund?
Well, that's who they're going to start the season with. I talked to Brent Sutter, and Backlund is penciled in as the top line center. But when Brendan Morrison comes back and is fully healthy, I have no doubt that he'll slide into that top spot as well. He fit in very nicely with Tanguay and again last year. Backlund will be given every chance, though, and the reason why he might be a very good fit is Not so much for his offensive upside. I mean, you got 2 guys on the wings who can
Yep.
really take care of that part. But he's responsible defensively. And we know Jerome likes to cheat a little bit and is more offensive-minded. And Tanguay's somewhere in the middle of that whole thing. You need a good defensive-minded guy. And I give Jim Playfair credit for getting Backlund to buy into that style of game.
Jokinen number 2?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, and then 3?
Well, that 3, you start getting into, I mean, I don't know. It'll depend on how these guys perform in camp.
Sure.
Ideally, it would be Matt Stajan. But, we just talked about him. And so, I don't, they love David Moss. So, my guess is David Moss will be number 3. Stajan will be number 4. But can you have Stajan, a guy who's, his work ethic was questionable, his talent's questionable. Can you have him out there being an energy guy? Well, if you only play that energy line 2-3 minutes a game,
maybe
you could go out there.
I was a hell of an energy guy in my day, let me tell you that. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, Jay Feaster unloads on the Edmonton Oilers. It's fun.
Yeah, it is.
Hi, I'm Henry Burris. I love Calgary, and I'm proud to call this place home. While Calgary has an interesting history, there aren't a lot of buildings that remain since the early days. And some of those that are left are in pretty bad shape.
Now we can revitalize this area with the use of robotic parking. It's efficient, it's accessible, and it's safe. The best part is that it's easy to use. For more information and a chance to invest with us, visit 7th Avenue Autopark.com.
Flames had a town hall session recently, and I thought one of the most interesting comments was what Jay Feaster had to say about the Edmonton Oilers, not just paraphrase about that, just saying, well, look, in the last 10 years, these guys have finished near the bottom almost all the time. They've got draft choices that aren't doing anything. We're way further ahead in the program than they are. Them are fighting words.
Well, Jay said these things all along, really, to be honest. But those were the most pointed words he had, basically saying, look at how many teams in the league have finished in the top 5 or the bottom 5, bottom 10, had great draft picks, and they're still wandering in the middle of nowhere. Florida, Atlanta, Edmonton are 3 that come to mind.
Yep.
Those franchises have forever been brutal, and they will probably be brutal for a long time to come. And it's because you can't just keep putting all this stock in youngsters and hoping that they'll develop, because some of them, when they develop, they're going to leave. This is the interesting thing to me. Talking to the Oilers, they clearly blew that thing up. And that's what a lot of people in Calgary think they have to do. Trade Kipper, trade again, blow this thing up.
Yeah.
And I agree that that's not the way to go. And I think it's good that Jay stands up for himself and says that's not the way we're going to do it. Edmonton didn't want to blow it up. Florida didn't want to blow it up. Atlanta didn't want to blow it up. Edmonton last year, their president, I talked to him, and he said, we didn't blow it up, it imploded. So then from that point on, then you go to plan B, which is, okay, get rid of all the assets that we can get anything for and just get new young guys through the draft. Calgary Flames have been where they've been ever since Darryl Sutter got to there in 03 because of trading. Nothing to do with the draft. The draft has not helped one bit. Only Dion Phaneuf is the only guy who ever came through the draft under Darryl's reign and had any sort of significant impact. So you can live without the draft. I don't know how long you can live without being proficient at the draft, and I think that's what the Flames are experiencing right now. A little bit of help at the draft over the last handful of years, and the Flames probably would have made the playoffs the last couple of years.
Draft, smart trades, always replenishing, getting rid of the old blood, putting in the new blood. I mean, you look back in history, the Leafs in the 80s. How many top draft choices did they have? Brutal team. You look at the Islanders, so good for so long, did not replenish, and they are still paying the price. So once you blow it up, it's a tough road to come back.
And how many fans or even general managers want to sit through 2 or 3 or 4? Who knows how many losing seasons you have to go through before you're finally retooled enough to go and win. Now, some people will cite the Chicago Blackhawks and said they did it and they won a cup 5 years later. They're the exception. They're not the rule. So the Flames have been lucky that they've been able to live by the trade. And for a long time, Darryl made a lot of great trades to make this team, very successful. At the end, when his trade started to fail, it killed them and killed him.